All right, y'all. So now we're on the crusp of the world causes, right? The July crisis. We're going from these long term shifts, right? We went from real politics to developed politics, destabilizing. Then we began to look at the idea of this national identity and this mood with militarism and masculinity needing to be found, pushing towards war. And then we looked at the idea of the Balkans as this powder keg ready to explode. Now we're looking at June 28, 1914. This begins what we call the July Crisis. This group called the Black Hand. The Black Hand was a Serbian terrorist organization that was anarchist. They believed through assassinations of Austrian leaders, Austria would collapse and Serbia would be able to expand. So again, when I say anarchist, not quite the anarchy of like, dude, we're all just going to live individually. It's the use of using terror, assassinations to bring down this element. Gavrilo Princip, he's going to be the key player here. And again, kind of surprisingly, Gavrilo Princip had earlier failed at his attempt to assassinate. And then he stopped at a little sandwich spot, bought a sandwich, and that's when everything went kind of crazy. And on June 28, 1914, Archduke Ferdinand and his wife Sophia were in Sarajevo. Sarajevo is the capital of Bosnia. He was there as a goodwill term, if you will, a goodwill gesture in hopes to say, hey, I'm going to be the emperor of all my people. He had been warned several times. And there was actually multiple assassination attempts on him this day. And Gavrilo Princip was actually supposed to be involved in one earlier. He failed. But as he was eating a sandwich, a bomb went off, scared the driver. The driver made a couple wrong turns and ended up in a dead end. And that dead end is where Gavrilo Princip was eating a sandwich. He's like, hey, what's this all about? And then that's when he took out his gun and shot the Archduke and the Archduke's wife. And this creates a diplomatic crisis. This diplomatic crisis is going to be called the July Crisis. And the July Crisis is really a series of communication failures that ultimately led to the First World War. We're not going to get involved in all of them. The one thing, if you're interested in this, the Willie Nicky telegrams, Willie being Wilhelm, Nicky being Nicholas, these were telegrams between the German Kaiser and the Russian Tsar over this mobilization issue. And again, if you read through those primary sources, it's pretty shocking to realize that there was not clear communication that was going on. They were just randomly chatting, it appears, but check those out. But in the end, Austria really wanted to punish Serbia. And this is a moment, and again, very important. They weren't sure how far can they go. They realized that the Balkans was the powder keg. They feared that if they invaded Serbia and blamed them for everything, that could trigger an Austro-Russian war. So before they acted, they had to wait. And after several weeks, the German government was really kind of frustrated. They were hoping for a quick action. And this is where we get what we call the infamous blank check. It's not a literal check, but here we see an image that's kind of illustrating this kind of relationship that Wilhelm is standing, Franz Joseph, that the elderly is sitting, and this is the infamous blank check. And the blank check basically stated Germany would support Austria regardless of what they do. So this really allowed the Austrians to really decide how are we going to punish it, and they had the full support of Germany. So instead of Germany and Wilhelm negotiating and trying to say, hey, let's set parameters, they said, you do what you want. And this is where we go towards war. On July 23rd, Austria offered Serbia an ultimatum. The ultimatum included Serbia had to stop teaching the evils of Austria in their schools. But the most important thing was Austria demanded that their army be used to invade Serbia to arrest the Black Hand. Serbia's like, oh my God, we're going to lose our sovereignty here, so we don't want to do that. So they ask Russia, and then Russia quickly says, hey, why don't you negotiate? And Serbia actually agreed to like 80% of the ultimatum. They said, all right. So they agreed to everything except for losing sovereignty. They would not allow the Austrian army to come in. So that seems like a big win, right? That, gosh, Austria has gained all this leverage. But instead, because of that blank check, on July 28th, Austria declared war on Serbia. As they begin to mobilize, Russia begins to mobilize. Uh, with this miscommunication between Russia and Germany, Russia only had one war plan. It was full mobilization along the Austrian-German borders, despite Tsar saying, hey, we're not going to invade Germany. Despite that promise, they were mobilizing, which means bringing troops up. So now the question is, what the heck's happening? On August 1st, as Germany declared war on Russia, they now are fearful of the Franco-Russian alliance kicking in. So Germany actually begins to negotiate and say, hey, France, what are you going to do? And it appears that France refused to answer. Are they going to go to war? Or are they not? Are they going to enact the treaty or not? Well, on August 3rd, this is when Germany was like, hey, we're going to enact the Schlieffen Plan. They they announced that they were at war with France, and then they invaded the neutral Belgium. And make sure you remember, Belgium was meant to be a neutral government. This goes all the way back to the 1830s with a Treaty of London in which England guaranteed them sovereignty as long as they remain neutral. So now all of a sudden, the German troops are now invading Belgium, and that's when the next day, Great Britain felt obligated to declare war on Germany. So from June 23rd to August 4th, we go from relative peace now to the most dangerous war. Now we see that everything's happening, the Schlieffen Plan. Make sure you define the Schlieffen Plan. It's in your textbook. I'll field questions in class. But the question now is for you, pause here. What was the most important cause? Is it the naval race? Is it the idea that the British and the Germans, that Anglo-German rivalry? Is it the nationalistic movements, especially in the Balkans? What role did the Triple Alliance play? What role did the Triple Entente play? Is it imperial rivalries? Is it Alsace-Lorraine? What is it that you feel is the most important cause? But with that said, this brings us into our first lesson. We have traced the development of World War I, the causes from the 1870s all the way to 1914. Y'all have a great day.